First day I went to the North School down at Baltimore Bank. Of course, that morning I was late taking my porridge, and my brother Dan, who was a year and a half older than me, off he went. So I toddled down near Ramon, and I saw another biggie, we called ourselves, standing at the outside door, and his name was Angus Bannerman, and he lived down in Louisborough. So we both went in, and we was brought in, I think, by a janitor to this room. Our first school teacher was Miss Edie. We had nicknames for them all anyway. She says, "You're late, boys, this is not a good start. What was your excuse?" Well, I says, "Miss, my porridge was too hot and I had to wait." And she turned to Angus, which we called Angie, and he says, "Well, I came along Louisborough and I went down the hill instead of up the hill." He was in Southaway in our school, so we both told lies. So she said to us then, "Look, if you're going to tell lies, you'll never get on this world." So he says, "There are 2 seats down at the front in the classroom." And she said, "You sit there and I'll keep my eye on you."
I lived at Luray Farm, beside the school, where my mother came to teach in August 1918, I remember her telling me. The school was so near the farm, less than 100 yards down the road, and I used to go down the road and went to school, and the teacher told my mother that I was a bit of a bother going out and in the school, so finally she put me on the roll. She thought that would be easier maybe.
The first day I went to school, I had no pals at the school then, and I was very attached to my sister. So the girls' playground had a wall between the girls' playground and the boys' playground. I had climbed up over the wall into the girls' playground to be beside my sister. The first day we went to school, we just drew walking sticks. A Miss Cunningham was our teacher in primary 1, and she always had an open fire in the classroom, and she stood up with her skirt up, and occasionally she would turn around, and of course you'd see all her bloomers. It was quite funny.
I can still remember in my mind's nose the smell of the infant classroom, which for me was the Territorial Army Hall. And I can best describe it as a mixture of scrubbed wood, vomit and disinfectant. In that classroom Army Hall, there was very little else. There was a high blackboard on legs and long sticking out feet to trip on. Imagine having to write risk assessments for the children in that room. The teacher, if she ever got a chance, sat at a table to do the register. For that purpose, she had 2 pots of ink, one blackish blue and one red, and 2 wooden writing implements with fitted, scratchy nibs and a piece of blotting paper on which she dabbed the nibs.
I remember when we started school, I hadn't far to go because we lived in 23 Van Sittert Street, and his school was in our room down the stair. And my mother used to come in on a washing day and get water out the tap there. All our pals was here, Ian Bremner, Reen, the whole crowd was. And then was it Lila Campbell, her sister, Miss Campbell anyway, used to take us down to Bray Hyde and we'd play green peas and barley oats. I was never very bright at school. I think I learnt more after it. But anyway, she'd say Ian and me, Ian Bremner, I don't know if you're related, you and Ian, but you're both dunderheads. But I like to think I've learned since then.
I'm very to talk on Newton Hill. Came a day when I was 5, it was time to go to the school. Down a hill, off up first to the South School and then to the Academy. And of course, folk of my vintage, 76 last year, folk of my vintage went to the Academy School. Now they call it the Assembly Rooms, but it lay be the Academy to me up at the top of St. Terrace here. And we was warned till an inch of our lives to behave ourselves when we were in the school. Do what the teacher says, and don't come home here and say you were in trouble, because if you got a skelt for your teacher, you get a lugger from me too. We went down and off we went into the school. Says cheerio to Mum, and that was it. And then this lady stood up in front of us, said, now sit down and sit up. I thought, well, how can you sit down and sit up at the same time? But we worked this out. And she was as funny. We knew I'd come out the house, up our Peedy Hilly, down a big brae, our brae gonna burn, and then into the town. Oh no, in school language, I had come out of the house, had come down the little hill, and then down the big hill, and across the bridge on the stream, and into the town. And here was all us bairns that spoke the way I spoke, having to translate into a whole different language. I thought, how weird, but do what you're told, do what the teacher says. I never even mentioned to Mum that a wifey spoke funny, because Mum might think I was being cheeky. And I managed this for a few years.
Going to the school at Clyde every day, we had to take a gas mask in a cardboard box on our shoulders and have gas mask practice for the Germans reading. And the teacher told us if we ever see any kind of object at the side of the road or on a field that might draw your attention, don't think of lifting it. It could explode in your hand. So there was I walking along on my own on the road at Clyde, and I saw this lovely red cylinder with silver at each end of it, and went to pick it up, and it started to move in amongst the grass in the side of the road. What a shock I got. Turned out it was one of the schoolboys playing a trick on me. He had a piece of black thread tied round it. That was quite good.
There were a lot of bairns in the room, all in double wooden desks with crash lids and folding up seats. They had an iron bar connecting desk front with seat. An iron bar that could trip you up if you were awkward. On the front of the desk was a channel for your slate pencil, a slit behind the channel for your slate, and an inkwell. Very plain slates with broken corners were provided, and fat slate pencils that made horrid wide writing. That's if you ever learned to write.
We were happy to go to the school every day because that's where we met up with all our friends. In them days in school we had the inkwells and the pens with the nibs, and of course you had to be so careful with your writing because sometimes the two prongs would go either way and a big blot would materialise. When I was young, I went to Thrumster Primary School, the old school. We walked down, it wasn't very far from the village actually, and en route we would have a wee clamber in the ditches and have a reek around the ponds as we usually did, and then eventually arrive at the school. First thing in the morning we usually had to line up for Castor Oil, And shock horrors nowadays, I don't know what they would be seeing, but in our day it was the same spoon tied with a big bit of rope to a brown bottle, and we all lined up and got a spoonful of castor oil before the day began to keep us nice and healthy. Some children, I think if I remember correctly, used to get this extract of malt, and it was so sticky. I think that was maybe children that were slightly poorer and indeed built up a little bit, but I was quite a sturdy person and didn't need any building up, that was for sure.
One of the vivid memories I have is it must have maybe been during winter time, but we always had a spoonful of cod liver oil, and we got our cod liver oil in school. We kept a teaspoon wrapped up in a paper bag in our desk. And the paper bags, I remember, some of them we would have the Robertson's paper bag, and they would have a little imprints of the bag, dare I say it, of the little Robertson's little gollywogs, and then you would then collect the little stickers. But we must have used the paper bags to wrap our teaspoons in, and then as a class then we would then hold our teaspoons, get our cod liver oil. We wouldn't have washed our spoon, don't think I remember washing it, and then we put it back in the paper bag ready for the next day. But I'm saying that I can actually even smell the cod liver oil, and it was it wasn't a little plasticky or capsule thing, it was a proper spoonful of cod liver oil, which was good for our lovely our shiny hair and strong bones and teeth, I think it was.
Vividly remember the milk bottles we used to get at break time. The milk crate of milk bottles would be sitting at the door when you arrived at school because they would be delivered earlier in the morning, and that crate was carried in and set beside the fire. Yes, we were lucky enough to have a coal fire in our classroom, and the milk bottles were set there ready for break time. Unfortunately, of course, because they were sitting beside the fire, by the time break time came, the milk was warm, or in the winter time at least the ice had been broken off the top of it.
Playtime, you would take your own piece with you. One of my favourite pieces, I can actually smell it again. It's funny how things you can smell it. For breakfast, Mum would often make us like a cooked breakfast, or we'd maybe have an egg, or it was fried tatties. We often would have fried tatties. It was the tatties left from the night before. Mum would fry them up in the morning, and we would have them on a piece. So it'd be white bread, plenty of butter, fried tatties that were hot, and a drizzle of tomato sauce, Heinz of course. It would be in a piece, it would be wrapped up in a bread wrapper, the wax bread wrapper, and we would take that in our school bag, and then by time probably 11 o'clock would come, we would have that. Well, I remember having that from a play piece, but of course the fried tatties and the butter and the tomato sauce would have actually all congealed by then, so you had this like cold tatty piece, nothing nicer. And remember that quite vividly. We maybe didn't have it very often, but I do remember it.
The toilets were down at the bottom of the playing fields, and we had to go out in the snow, and we had to run out in the cold weather and go down to the toilets down at the bottom of the playing fields.
Our reading, which was taken in groups out round the fire, was Sing, Mother, Sing. Mother can sing. Pat can sing. Anne can sing. Sing, sing, sing. The next page. Can Mother sing? Mother can sing. Can Pat sing? Pat can sing. Can Anne sing? Anne can sing. Sing, sing, sing. I used to wonder why after the first 20 were there people who still couldn't get it. The teacher would scold them for not having done their reading. I used to think, well, I've done it till I'm bored out of my mind with it.
And I remember very vividly with our spelling, if you got your spelling right at the end of the week, you would get a reward. And the reward used to be threepence. I was always quite good at my spelling, and I suppose I probably got a threepence most weeks. But I remember thinking that there maybe would be other folk in my class and maybe in other classes that maybe didn't get that. So, it was quite maybe tough there. And we all, worked together. If there was only 4 or 5 or 6 of you in one class, that must have been quite hard for others, thinking that there was Pat Anderson and she was always getting a threepenny at the end of the week and others didn't.
By the time I was in about 7, I was in Miss Tate's class, doing at the back right-hand corner of his school, only downstairs Betty. And she was saying, now today we're going to do sentences, a complex sentence, nice long sentence with different parts in it. Say, what did you do when you went home from the school yesterday? So I put my hand up and said, yesterday when I came home from the school, I went out to feed the hens and one of the hens flew up onto the hen house roof. Oh! The word house went out of my mouth and my hair stood up in the back of my head. I knew it was wrong. The class kent it was wrong as well, and Miss Tate nailed me to the desk with a look would have curdled crime, and she just looked, and the silence got bigger and bigger, and I knew my face was red, and all she did was glare and say, "Huss!" and I shrank and I sat down. I don't know, did she notice, but I never answered a question for a week. I think sometimes folk that fancy they're going to correct your language, they'd better think that they're not correcting it, they're just stopping you speaking anything, because you're terrified to say a word.
I don't remember getting belted very much. My brother, he was always receiving the belt. He was a bit mischievous and he was always on the receiving end of getting the strap, unfortunately. But I remember in the little endy we had this teacher who was a little bit confused, and she had sent another pupil through for the belt from the big endy to give to my brother. And when he came back with the belt, she forgot that she'd sent it through, so that she was going to give the belt to my brother, but she ended up belting the guy that went through for the belt, who happened to be Johnny Youngster at the time.
They opened the brand new Pocklington Academy Primary School, and I remember we left the assembly rooms this one day, and we were going hand in hand in twos, and we walked from the assembly rooms to the brand new Pocklington Academy, and I was still in primary 1. And we went in, and I never forget going into the class, and of course what the teacher had to do, they had the blackboards, and they had to take chalk and spread it all over the blackboard to make it workable so that they could actually put chalk on it. So they'd take the chalk, spread it all over the blackboard. That then it became workable as a blackboard once it had this coat of chalk on it. So I never forget that.
I remember in primary 4 we had Miss Henderson in primary 4, and I remember my dad had it was a poem, but the way it was written it looked like it was Spanish. There was words coming together, and I was sure that my dad was reciting Spanish when he read me his poem, but there was one day in classroom that Miss Henderson asked, can anybody speak any foreign languages? And my hand went straight up, so I was invited out to the floor, and I said that I could recite a Spanish poem. So we had 42 people in our class then, it was big classes, and so she said, go on then Alan, let's hear your poem. And it went along the lines of, Si senora dirty go, 40 lorries in a row, them no lorries, them are trucks. See if it's in him, coos and ducks. So obviously some people didn't, they thought a wee bit of Spanish in there, but generally I was laughed at, and the teacher, she didn't laugh out loud, probably just to try and not embarrass us, but I'm sure if when she went home at night she must have had a good teacher to herself, that's for sure.
Sometimes we played with such advanced toys as large, thick, pieces of rope. No idea where they came from. One child held one end, while another child held the other end, and these turned the rope, while the rest skipped until everyone was out. Then the first two out had to hold the ends next time. I was good at skipping, of course. Could do more skips than anyone else before tripping. But if you were good, then the evil rope turners would pull the rope and trip you to get through the lot and to get back skipping themselves.
One of the things I do remember is the annual school picnic. We went up the Strath, the Dunbeath Strath, and we assembled at Addy Cunningham's mill. It was a water mill. We each had a tin mug to carry up to the picnic green, as we called it. We then had the races in the picnic green. The parents came as well, and they sat on the edges of the picnic green. They boiled an urn of tea. We each got a mug of tea and sandwiches, of course, halfway through the races. I forget all what races, but there was running races and three-legged race and pickaback races. It was very enjoyable.
Sports days were another huge day for us. Johnny the janitor would have cut the grass, the older boys would have helped him to put in fence posts and put a huge rope in a circle in the middle of the sports field. Gibby Fraser's van and John Stewart in his Lions Made ice cream van, they were allowed into the field. And mums and dads, brothers and sisters all descended for an afternoon of fun and games. It was like a great big outdoor party.
And another thing I remember was we did sewing and knitting, and this particular year we had to make a big pair of pants, and it was a double page of the Daily Express. That was our pattern, and I remember choosing lime green for the material, and we had to sit and sew this, and then when we'd finished, I remember one of my pals, Jennifer, modelling her pair of pants, and they were as wide as could be, but anyway, we thought we were the bee's knees after we had completed this task of sewing up this great big knickers.
We used to have another experience in Ackergill School that was fairly unique, I suppose. Ackergill School sat at the end of a runway from Wick Aerodrome. Well, on occasions we would sometimes go and play on that runway. We weren't supposed to, but we did. But the important thing about that runway was at the period when we were at school, the Shackleton aircraft used to land and take off from Wick. And if you can remember these Shackletons, they were big, slow, heavy beasts of airplanes, and they made quite a noise. And as they took off, they flew directly over Ackergill School. And when they came into land, they flew directly over Ackergill School. So there was always a sort of hiatus in terms of our lessons when the Shackletons were around.
The big thing in the school year was the Christmas treat, which was a concert the pupils put on at Christmas for all the parents, December was spent rehearsing for this, learn carols and recitations and the little plays and everything. And the teacher was the director and the producer, and they used to be done in the school hall. Jamesy Mode was the counsellor for Keast. He was also a bus driver. He drove Birch buses. He was the counsellor, and he was always the chairman at these things. So Jamesy would be the chairman at the Christmas treat, and he would compare the whole show, and he would tell jokes in between the items while we were shifting the scenery, So that was great, and everybody turned out, and all the parents and uncles and aunties, and, in the hall would be packed. And then Santa would appear at the end. This was organised by the WRI. So somebody dressed up as Santa appeared at the end, and every pupil in the school got a present. And as you get older, of course, it was that thing, when you discovered the truth behind Santa, you were kind of duty bound not to reveal this to the younger ones who still didn't ken. And another thing was that when you're in the last year in the primary school, primary 7, you knew what you're going to get at Christmas. Because everybody got a pen and pencil set before they went on to the high school. But, you know, that was it.
I then went to higher grade, and that was in Thurso, the Miller Academy. And I had to cycle from Luray to the Miller Academy. And I was doing that daily for a few weeks. And then the weather worsened, and my aunt and Ray, my father's sister and Ray, said, come into Thurso in the morning on your bike, and then at night come out to Ray on the school bus, and then on Friday, if you want to go back home for the weekend, cycle back to Luray. So that's what I did.
I didn't particularly enjoy North School. I loved getting out to play football when it came to that time of year, and I loved gym and stuff. But I wasn't an academic. I was always sort of middling. I always ended up about 15th in the class, and there was about 43 in my class. But when I went to high school, I went into the technical section. I was in T1A, and I took to a duck to water. I loved the high school. And in my first year, I was first in the class, and I got a prize. Now, when I was in primary school, there was a particular lady teacher that I had a very close relationship with. She hated me and I hated her. And she picked on me at all points, and if I got something wrong, she used to hit me in the back hand with a ruler. And she wasn't nice at all, and I seemed to be continually picked on. Anyway, this particular year I was first in the class, and I got a prize, and was at a prize giving, and who was presenting the prizes? But this dear old teacher from my past in the primary school. And my name was called out, and I went up to the platform, and you had to salute and get your prize. And I went up to the platform, and she had a book held low down, and she saw me coming, and she pulled the book up high up onto the top of her chest. And in a loud voice she said, well, Harry Gray, doesn't this make a change for you? I cannot tell you what I thought, because I couldn't record it.